No, but it's okay. So here I am, rock you like a hurricane. Okay. So shall we talk about life and death today?
We will definitely talk about life and death today.
Okay, great.
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised that has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
All right, this is GammaCast, and we are talking about Episode 10, Season 1. Director Jeffrey Hayden, writer James D. Perriott, original air date May 12th, 1978. Episode is called Life and Death. While on his way to volunteer for an unethical experiment on his DNA, David discovers that the doctor administering the test is involved in running an illegal adoption agency. The alias he's using on this episode is David Bernard. The location is Oregon. And online today, I have got my great co-host, Charlie. Hey, Charlie.
Hello. Always happy to be here.
Yep, usually I do the intro first, and then I run into the whole synopsis, but I was too excited to get all that out. So,
Yeah.
So Life and Death, definitely a much different vibe, a much different feeling of an episode. This has got a much darker tone to it than the trucker episode that we just talked about.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, this one has a very deep tone, even a subtext around, having a baby and then giving it up for adoption, and
Yeah.
really the whole message around, should you be having a baby or shouldn't you, really try to keep the baby? So there's really a kind of a deeper message in it it looked like the writers were trying to convey with the fact that they were, of course, condoning people to not give up the babies and keep them and give them a happy life.
Yeah. Well, it's very much a and it's very much a episode to demonize the idea of adoption in general, and sort of tell a horror story about this illegal for-profit adoption agency, but essentially the purpose of which is just to sort of throw shade on the idea of private adoption. So,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that there was obviously some legal question because the very start of the episode, you do get this little bit of boilerplate about how this is a purely fictional account and does not represent any real-world organizations or concepts.
Yeah, all
So
characters, organization, events in this story are fictional, which you didn't get in front of a lot of the other, or you didn't get in any of the previous episodes.
no, because the giant green man was usually the tip off.
This is a great point. But
Yeah,
so I assume that there's probably would have been something that was happening back in the late 70s that had this kind of like ripped from the headlines kind of thing going on.
the essentially, I mean, let's not for nothing. This is very much, the height of the women's movement, and there was this. There has and there still is to this day a very strong backlash against the idea that a woman should not want to be a mother. That a woman, should, that regardless of her circumstances, it is her moral obligation and duty to have that child and raise that child regardless of any other factors. That doesn't matter. Your job is, as a woman, to raise that child. And this was, this was an issue in 1978, and it's still an issue in 2016. And like I said, they could have, they could have done an adoption episode without it having to be with the evil, adoption agency that's going to leave you to bleed out in the street after they steal your baby.
Right.
It was a very heavy-handed take on the idea, and it was clearly someone had an axe to grind, because one thing I really feel about this episode is that the Hulk is one of these episodes where the Hulk is fairly superfluous to the story.
That's true. I think you would have gotten the same results regardless if the Hulk or David Banner were in the story at all, because the original lady that was hurt and that was in the hospital, she would have gotten better thanks to the second Doctor, and she probably would have told the police. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go through the synopsis of the episode. So at the beginning, David is getting out of a hitched truck. One night he hitchhiked and he got a ride. Then he sees a pregnant woman. She's looking to get a ride to town. And then, he noticed that she's obviously very pregnant. And then, he's able to get a ride for both of them. When they get out of the car, then, he gets more information where you get a little more of a backstory about how David had a sister. And I'm not sure where that's going to go yet, but I think that's going to play later. And then you had the very pregnant lady who was saying, I'm not going to the hospital. And then David admits he's going to the hospital for another reason. And he takes her to this very mysterious place that she has to get buzzed in. And, and so she goes in to, have her baby at this other off hospital place. And then David goes on to the hospital, right?
Yes. And of course, when he gets to the hospital, he meets this doctor who I know from some other item, but I don't know where I've seen him before. But this doctor, he has this new experimental gene therapy, which is actually kind of really interesting to see them doing, because it's very, very much described as what we would now think of as gene therapy.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick, though. Are you familiar with Star Trek Deep Space Nine?
Well, yeah, I'm familiar with DS9, yeah.
Yeah, the actor that played a guy named Garrick in Deep Space Nine.
That was Garrick?
Yes.
Oh my! Well, it's amazing what 30 years will do to you. But
Andrew Robinson.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that is small world. And he's still the villain, or a conflicted character involved in complex situations.
Well, he was also
he
was also in Hellraiser, and he was also in Dirty Harry and a movie with Stallone called Cobra. So he got around. He's got some good acting credits.
Yes. Well, good for him. Good to see him getting work. And of course, wow, man, Incredible Hulk and DS9. That guy is on the convention circuit forever and never has to work again.
I think so. Yes.
Yes. Well, good for him. But I thought that was like, for something that was kind of science fiction-y, it was actually pretty accurate with, how you might want to treat something along these lines, so that was pretty cool there. And of course, we do get him moving himself forward. Of course, when, it's an interesting aspect of this. Last night when I'm live tweeting, it was models and it was models. It was the models episode.
Right.
And, as I'm watching it, I tweet out that, after this episode, Banner gets a lot better about sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. And it struck me that, that really is something that we do see in this progression of the character, that after that episode, after he gets so badly played by Lonnie Anderson's character, that he really is a lot less interested in just jumping into it. I mean, when he thinks maybe she could die because they're not taking care of them, he does go back and track her down. But when she says, "I've made my choice," he's like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." And then he goes about and goes to get his operation. And it was only because they got worried that he was a cop or something, or a blackmailer, that they decided to, seek revenge against him.
Right.
Had they not seen him there, had they not made that leap, he actually would have gotten the therapy,
Right.
which is kind of sad,
But I like like you said before, the science part of it. Dr. Rhodes, he's using X-ray machine to eliminate an extra like DNA thing that causes excessive aggression. So
Yes.
I love the idea of the science behind it, and that's exactly what I was looking for from a lot of the previous episodes that I had issue with.
Yeah.
Is where we have the exact situation where David Banner has gone out, found somebody that's doing something that, albeit experimental and very dangerous, but something that may help him. Now, I mean, obviously, not finding a way that's going to stop the Hulk thing from happening at all, but stop him from getting aggressive. So I like that
Well,
aspect of the
actually,
science part of it.
yeah. Actually, I think the intention was to cure the Hulk, because it wasn't even so much as the aggression, as it was, because, as we remember, there's like this one extra allele or something in his in his DNA,
Right.
that is what is stimulated, that when stimulated by the gamma rays, led to the increased strength, and of course is the cause of the Hulk. The idea is that by changing the cells in his hypothalamus, that if these cells could overtake and replace his hypothalamus without that deviation, then it would not result in a hulking situation when he does become angry or outraged. So, he would just get the normal amount of angry or outraged. He wouldn't just, I mean, it's not a perfect analogy to what we would nowadays think of as gene therapy, but it was a pretty good explanation for how you might actually treat this disorder in this current age. It was very fascinating to me. It's just too bad that no one was funding his research, and in true mad scientist fashion, he had to compromise his actions.
Right, exactly. So, going back, we had the where we discover that's what's happening. He's delivering babies that are being sold for this other organization, I guess, called the Matrix.
Yes.
And of course, they believe that David somehow is going to tell on them, or he's involved with the police, or he's a reporter or something. They're not sure, because somehow he got involved with their latest victim. They see him talking to her, and of course they start getting nervous about that. So then when David goes in for this procedure to have done by the doctor, he of course signs the release form that's going to release them from any kind of if something bad happens to him, or he dies, or he gets hurt, the hospital is free and clear. So the doctor goes ahead with this, air quotes, experiment. But of course, since he has a suspicion about David, the decision is made that he's going to try to kill David instead of doing the actual experiment. And then that's when we get our first Hulk out moment, because when that scene is happening, David is watching where the needle goes. And he knows that it's incorrect, that it's not the correct placement for where the needle should be going.
Exactly, and it makes for a good scene where, as we always say, we often have like this question of what is the Hulk gonna fight. In this one, the Hulk is basically fighting morphine.
Right.
which was it's an interesting take on it. It's an interesting way to sort of give the Hulk an interesting challenge that doesn't require a lot of effort, but just showing that he is the Hulk and he's shaking it off. That was kind of interesting. It's also kind of weird seeing. I remember watching this and just thinking, when he goes to the food cart, and I'm just thinking, oh, the Hulk's got the munchies.
The part that I thought was funny was the old man in the elevator. It just he had that the trauma look about him, but then unfortunately the effects weren't that awesome that when he broke the side of the elevator to jump out, you did see kind of Lou hanging for a moment from I saw the suspended wires. So unfortunately byproduct at the time, and I'm sure the budget was had its issues, but I'm sure what it was supposed to look like was a super leap down from the elevator. But I don't think they executed as well as modern day times could have, though.
I'll say this: I watched this on my standard definition TV through my kid's Wii on Netflix, and on that I didn't notice that at all. So
Okay.
So for the time it was probably pretty accurate. But when you get into that HD stuff, everything gets harder in HD.
Right. So then we had a drunk Hulk who was kind of bumbling around for a bit, and then he goes off somewhere to calm down, and then he turns back to David Banner, and then David Banner, still in the stupor from the drugs, still finds the mental capacity that he realizes he's still got to go back and try to save the lady that's having her baby. So he still works his way back to the Matrix address, and then this very, I don't know, rough attempt at just trying to get into the building, just like he cannot even get above, jumping over a wall because of the drugs. So I don't want to say it's comedic, but it was just kind of akin to watching, a drunk Bill Bixby trying to perform something that should be simple.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is how we're moving beyond this, and of course, once he becomes the Hulk again, then he's great. He's classic Hulk, and then it's Hulk versus the walls.
Yeah, and then I guess from there he works his way upstairs, and because of he's frustrated once again. In this case, it's not AT&T or a taxi that he's dealing with, but he's just his own limitations with not being able to get to where he needs to be in time, and he knows that somebody that he's trying to help is in danger. That causes the second Hulk out moment. So then he hulks out again and then works his way up, and then he confronts the doctor.
Yeah. And of course that's very much and as we've said, that's very much how his Hulks tend to go. It's the first Hulk is protecting himself, the second Hulk is always protecting someone else. That he's trying to be the guy who he's trying to be the hero, which is what makes the Hulk a heroic character to start with. That he is entering into this Hulk state because he is trying to right or wrong, and for better or worse, he is certainly doing so in this. He is defeating the bad guys, which is good. Although I kind of felt that we didn't get a lot of tie up at the end. I don't think we really got a statement that Doctor such and such is going away or anything like that. We just got David and the woman in the proper hospital with her baby, who she has decided she is going to keep.
Right. Right. But I mean, going back
not
to
named DeVito.
DeVito, right? But going back to the scene with the Hulk and the baby, what did you think about that?
Oh well, I thought that was. I mean, that was. They've done that before with the Hulk. The idea of the Hulk being tender and gentle. Basically, the Hulk is only dangerous when you're a danger to him.
Right.
And when he sees a baby, the baby is just a baby. And the Hulk recognizes that, and he's going to be gentle with the baby. And but obviously it's very freaking out for the mother. But then when he gives the mother the baby, then it calms her down and everything, and then they come in to fight with the Hulk, and the cops come in at that point because, of course, then you've got the cops coming in, and then the Hulk, bursts through the wall and makes his break for it.
What I want to say is I think that this episode, amongst the other ones that we've seen so far, really shows off, the range of Lou Ferrigno. Because he had to play, the drug-induced Hulk and kind of stumbling around, and you got a lot of Hulk moments in there. But then you also had that moment with the baby where you actually got to see the Hulk smile, which you haven't got to see, up until this point. And it was just kind of, seeing more of the acting range of Lou Ferrigno. I think that really showed off in this episode. And we didn't get a lot of that. And
I've said from episode 0 that I really feel that Lou Ferrigno, as a silent actor, is actually quite phenomenal. He's actually quite a talented actor. When he doesn't have to speak. I think that when he speaks, because he can't hear himself speak, he has a little harder of a time trying to convey himself, as well as he can convey himself when he's not speaking. I think that he's pretty talented there. Funny story, Harpo Marx was very much the same kind of guy, where which is why he never spoke, was because he realized after a particularly scathing review that he was really good at this silent acting, and but of course anytime he opened his mouth, it was less so. Rowan Atkinson's Mr. Bean, of course, would be the modern day equivalent of that, of a guy who really mastered a mode of silent acting that we just don't see much anymore.
Right, just some quirky noises is really all you need.
Yes.
with the right person doing it, obviously. You wouldn't be able to, not everybody be able to pull that off, but what we're saying is Lou Ferrigno can. So, big testament to, being able to see more of a range in this episode for him. But yeah, a lot of what you were saying, before the moment where we had him at the end, to kind of wrap, not even wrap things up, but the part that I thought was funny was where the cops tell him to put his hands on the wall, and you just know what's going to happen next. You just know that there's going to be a moment where somebody's going to need some more drywalling, and
and it just, I like the fact that they told the Hulk to do it, and the Hulk just did it. It's like,
right.
Around. Okay, I'll turn around. What do you do? It says put your hands on the wall. Bam. Then that is, and yes, and absolutely. The second you see it, you knew exactly where that story was going. You always you knew it. I think I knew it when I first saw it in 1978. I think it's like, oh yeah, I know where this is going.
Yes.
But I mean, and that was, and they did a lot with the Hulk bursting through walls in this episode. This was very much like I said, this is Hulk versus
drugs,
brick and mortar.
Well, walls, elevators, and drugs. So that's really what we had him battling, other than a few people that he tossed.
Yeah, I do prefer when he actually has to do a feat of strength against a comparable physical object, like the like the front loader, like the
car crusher.
Car crusher. Yeah, those I think are still my favorite, but this was actually a pretty good use of it.
We can't go without saying the bear. We got to keep saying the bear. Everybody keep the bear episode alive.
Oh yeah, just the throwing of a bear. I'm trying to remember. Did he throw something in this episode?
I believe he threw like one of the guys that were helping out the doctor, if I remember right.
No. It was something. Someone had like texted, like when I was tweeting along. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was actually the models episode. I'm forgetting what was going on when I was tweeting, but
But yeah, to wrap up the episode, we have Carrie, which was the lady that was having her baby that David saved. She's in the hospital, has a baby safe and sound, and then there's she's being told that Jack McGee is coming because he wants to talk to her. And once David hears that, of course, he uses that as his excuse to leave. We have a near miss opportunity with Jack McGee coming down the hallway in the hospital. David goes and gets acts like he's getting a drink from the water fountain so that it kind of hide his face from Jack McGee. And then, he gets into the elevator after Jack walks by, and then, cue the Lonely Man theme.
Yes. Yeah, poor Jack McGee. He's, I always say this, so he's got like the best reporter's instinct, because no matter where the Hulk is, he is like just a few hours behind. As soon as he hears where the Hulk is, he's right. He's in the neighborhood. He's close enough that by the time Banner gets a new pair of shoes and is finishing up his story, that Jack McGee's at the front desk. So kudos to Jack McGee for those reporters' instincts.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because the last episode had him in the desert of Nevada, and now we're in Maryville, Oregon. That's quite a big difference. How would Jack know to go there? That's
just knows.
Just knows.
Just knows. That's why he's Jack McGee.
Yes.
Yeah, he's just got that sixth sense. He's just a great reporter in that sense. I'll give you even one better, if you really want to go one better. That next episode, which I haven't seen the full, but I know the start of it, and when David Banner shows up at a place, Jack McGee is already there waiting for him. Well, not waiting for him, but Jack McGee was already following another story in the same location. So it's that's just how good Jack McGee is. He's just he actually winds up ahead of the Hulk even when he's not chasing the Hulk.
So you're talking about episode 11, which is called Earthquakes Happen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, earthquakes happen.
All right. Well, something to look forward on that one then.
It happens less when you don't build on a fault line, but yes, they do happen.
All right. So, Charlie, do you have final thoughts on Life and Death?
Yeah, Life and Death. I mean, I felt that the politics of it were a little heavy-handed, but aside from that, I thought it was interesting. I do long for more action in the Hulk, but I do know that we're not going to get that much more action in the Hulk. All in all, I thought it was a good episode, and I'm happy. I'm looking forward to a couple of weeks when it comes onto MeTV and I can live tweet along with it.
Yeah.
They're like 2 steps behind us. So like last Saturday was Models, so I've got 747 and Breaking Las Vegas to do. So in 3 weeks it'll be up, and looking forward to it.
Oh, maybe we gotta get a couple more episodes in the can so we can stay ahead of them.
Yeah, well, so far so good.
All right, so for me, you're right. There's a lot of this where it seemed a little heavy-handed for the message, the subtext around the episode, around making sure you're keeping your baby, rather than giving up for adoption. But if you kind of overlook that aspect of it and kind of look at what you get from Lou Ferrigno, with his acting range, where we got to see a lot more of that with this episode, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of it for the science part of it. I really liked that there was a lot of activity going on with him trying to cure himself. The only thing is we didn't get Jack McGee until the very end, but I understand that given the story that was going on, that would have been tough to mix in, because then it would have taken it away from what David or the Hulk was trying to accomplish if they always had to avoid Jack McGee.
Although I will say this, and I tweeted this last Saturday with the Models episode too, but it says, how rich people in this universe seem to just see murder as like their first option. Anytime anything goes wrong in their plans, like, well, why don't we just murder them? They seem to be, it's a very violent universe, the universe of the Incredible Hulk TV show.
I know. I mean, that is their go-to answer, right? You know, you're right. Exactly. I have a problem,
Yeah, it's like
and
murder him.
yeah, murder them. Problem solved. That's a great
It's
point.
like, let's not find out what it's about. Let's just kill it. And what I think is funniest about that is just this idea that, oh, well, he might be a cop. Well, okay, we'll still murder him. Well, he might be a con artist. Well, still murder him. It's like, at what point does the idea of murdering someone who has information on you not make this problem bigger? That's all I'm saying.
It's like they don't even give any thought process around somebody might be missing this person, and now we're going to have to explain it. Nobody thinks that far ahead. They just go, all right, we'll just off them. So, who knows?
Who knows? Well, if they weren't true villains, then we might not always root for the Hulk, I guess.
This is a good point. So, on the social media, how do people find you, Charlie?
Well, if you'd like to tweet along with me when I live tweet episodes of The Incredible Hulk on Saturdays at 7 Eastern, feel free to follow me at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEesser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And I'll occasionally live tweet other things too. It's a lot of fun. Hang out with me. And then if you want to just email me in that old-fashioned email way that our moms and pops did many, many years ago, you can email me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. And of course, I'm on the Facebook as well. I don't think anyone cool is on Facebook anymore. So.
Hey, wait a minute. We have a Facebook for 80s Reboot.
Yes. Point made.
Ouch. Charlie just dissing the 80s Reboot Facebook page.
I love the 80s Reboot. There's not a, I love listening to all the other shows that I'm not on. It's very good.
Yeah, in fact, you even had a few good ideas for the 80s Icon series. So definitely something I'm going to have to take you up on the future there of being involved in those.
I look forward to it.
All right, and I'm Dave, so I manage our 80s Reboot Overdrive social media stuff. So that's Twitter at 80s Reboot, Tumblr is 80sreboot.tumblr.com, Facebook is facebook.com/80s Reboot. We also have a blog now, and that's southgatemediagroup.com/80s Reboot blog. Email, you want to shoot us an email, that's 80sreboot@gmail.com. More importantly, amongst all of those other things, I want you to go out right this minute, as soon as you get done listening to us, of course, is go to the iTunes and find the podcast. If you haven't gotten there by listening to us this way, go there, write a review for us. We want you to go in there and throw a 5-star review, hopefully, if you're liking what you hear, and just give us some feedback. We would definitely appreciate it. It's going to help more people find us, so it's very important for you to be able to do that for us. We would really appreciate it. So just take a few minutes and get that done, and we will continue to Hulk out with you, and have a good night. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Dave. Always a pleasure.
Yep. We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.